Every generation thinks it's smarter than the last, right up until it loses everything in the same old way. That's the quiet truth of financial history. We don't invent new mistakes. We just update the software. Every bubble, from tulips to tech stocks, starts with the same sentence. This time, it's different. It never is. The real difference is the story people tell themselves before it pops. Tulips in the 1600s weren't just flowers. They were status symbols, collectibles before the blockchain. In 1637, a single bulb sold for 10 times a craftsman's annual salary. People traded futures contracts on petals. And when the music stopped, merchants, nobles, and farmers all went bankrupt over something they could have grown in their backyard. Then came the South Sea Company in 1720, the official sponsor of greed. The British government backed a corporation that promised infinite wealth through trade with South America, except it never traded anything. Everyone invested anyway, politicians, aristocrats, even Isaac Newton. He lost most of his fortune and famously said, "I can calculate the movement of the stars, but not the madness of men." Fast forward to the 1920s. The radio was the internet of its time. Stocks doubled, tripled, quadrupled. Banks loaned money to people who bought more stocks, which raised prices, which created collateral for more loans. It was self-reinforcing insanity disguised as prosperity. When the market crashed in 1929, it erased nearly half of America's industrial production in 3 years. That's what happens when leverage meets euphoria. Bubbles aren't about numbers. They're about belief. They begin with something real. A breakthrough, a new technology, a fresh frontier. And they all die the same way. Not because the idea was wrong, but because the story was too good. That's the anatomy of a bubble. Something exciting, something misunderstood, and something over. And here's the scary part. You're living through one right now. The only question is whether you'll see it before it bursts. To understand how, we need to talk about the pattern. Every bubble begins with innovation. It's the spark that makes greed look like vision. Then comes liquidity, easy money, low interest rates, credit expansion. The more accessible to cash, the faster belief spreads. And once prices start rising, you don't even need innovation anymore, just momentum. In the 1990s, the internet arrived and investors lost their minds. Anything with "come" in the name doubled overnight. People quit jobs to day trade tech stocks. Analysts claimed profits didn't matter. Eyeballs did. By 2000, the Nasdaq had tripled. A year later, it lost 80% of its value. And here's the irony. The internet was revolutionary. It changed everything, just not at the prices people paid for it. Then came the housing bubble. Home ownership was sacred. Risk was diversified. And everyone believed real estate could never fall. But underneath was a Rube Goldberg machine of debt. Mortgage-backed securities, credit default swaps, papers stacked on paper until no one knew what anything was worth. When it collapsed in 2008, global GDP shrank by $4 trillion. Banks were bailed out. Homeowners weren't. History privatized the gains and socialized the losses. After every crash, the system evolves to make the next one bigger, faster, and harder to escape. Today, the system itself is the bubble. Zero interest rate policies pumped cheap money into everything. Stocks, housing, private equity, even art. The Federal Reserve printed nearly $9 trillion after 2008. That liquidity went to assets, driving up prices that made the rich richer and made everyone else think they were rich, too. When the Fed started tightening, the air hissed out fast. Stocks fell, housing slowed, crypto evaporated. For a brief moment, reality peeked through the cracks. And then we all went back to pretending. The bubble isn't just in markets. It's in expectations. We've built a global economy that needs permanent optimism to function. But growth can't go on forever. Nothing in nature compounds infinitely. Yet, that's the lie holding the financial system together. The same warning signs are flashing again. Corporate debt is at record highs. Tech valuations are back to pre-crash levels. The AI boom is echoing every bubble before it. A real technology wrapped in a trillion-dollar fantasy. History is telling us what comes next, but we're too busy buying call options to listen. So, can you spot the next bubble before it pops? Maybe. Look for 3 signs. First, when prices rise faster than comprehension. Second, when experts say you don't understand a new paradigm. And third, when your friends start getting rich doing nothing. That's when you're no longer investing. You're auditioning for a history book. Bubbles don't die because of math. They die when reality runs out of believers. The biggest bubble isn't Bitcoin or tech stocks or real estate. It's the illusion that someone else will warn you before it bursts. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And if you can hear the rhyme, you already know what comes next. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.